Hey folks, I just wanted to show you that every single thing that you're working on can become multimodal. And I think a lot of people are trapped in this unimodal way of thinking where they go, oh, a blog post should be a blog post, a social post should be a social post. And really, everything that you're working on can come to life. You can have a blog post that has an image with it. You can have a video that has an additional animation that you make, or that video gets a podcast that goes along with it, whatever. So I want to show you a couple visual examples, at least, and it's going to cut across Gemini, ChatGPT, and Claude, just to see what each one can do. So I'm going to start here, and I'm going to say, I am going to feed you a social post, and you will turn it into a canvas. You can either do this, or you can just ask it to like write you something. Um, and what I found is that if you don't say this and then you just click the canvas button, that it doesn't actually launch a canvas. The other thing you can do is an annoying workaround, but you can ask Gemini to write anything in a canvas, write me one sentence about post-its, and then you can just overtake the canvas itself and put in um your actual post. So this is fine. It turned my social post into more of like a blog post. And honestly, I'm gonna screenshot this because it looks way better than, than my social post. Okay, but in the top right, you're gonna see this create drop down. And a lot of people don't know about this feature. So if you go to create and then you do a drop down, very similar to Notebook LM, where you can create this audio overview. I don't know why they don't just call it a podcast. You can create this audio overview. You can create a quiz, infographic, web page. So I'm going to create an infographic. And what I found is that the infographic is a little bit more complex than you would like want to share on social. And so it'll usually do these frame by frame or like chunk by chunk, sort of like a website. Grabbing just a section at a time is worth it to do this infographic. Okay, while this is loading, I'm gonna jump to ChatGPT. You can, by the way, go down here and say create an image, but as long as you say like draw, create, make me a photo, it'll still call that tool, so you don't have to do that drop down. But let's say I have a social post and I want it to go viral. I am targeting business leaders, Gen X, pro AI, confused on the path forward. I use black and gray and neon yellow in my branding. You could even give the hex code for your colors. I, use circuits and gears and mechanical icons. Okay, so do context, and then we're gonna say task. I'm gonna have another section for the actual social post itself. In case you want to read it. On the task, create an image that perfectly, accompanies this social post, drawing out the most important components of a successful AI enablement strategy. Be sure to include a header. Task, context, social posts. So we are going to hit go on that, and you'll see that even though I didn't hit that drop down for the tool, it started creating an image. While that is being created, let's do a very similar thing in Claude. And I'm going to say create a visual artifact as a React component that encapsulates the core components of this social post. Make it animated and use colors like black, gray, neon yellow, and white. Again, even though Claude prefers XML like this, you can also just do that same markdown and it'll be fine. Formatted posts, formatted prompts are always the goal. Format. Okay, so we have this, create a visual order, and I'm going to submit this, but then I'm also going to launch another Claude Ask, which is going to ask for something interactive. I'll do that after this runs. So let's go back to Google Gemini. Obviously, I want to double check this stat before I share it anywhere. And again, it's this really long thing. I love this sort of graphic. Like, this is awesome. And then AI enablement ecosystem. Again, these boxes are a little tall. I could ask it to shorten it and squish it. And so let's just say the boxes are too tall and have too much white space. Make it more condensed. Make all of the headers yellow. Make background black and gray. Cool. Okay, In the visual, we get a very nice thing from ChatGPT. This looks slightly like my branding. Um, this looks totally fine. It's missing something at the bottom, so I can say, make all the arrows at the bottom point to, a ribbon of success that is animated and over the top. Okay. Then in Claude, we get now an animated thing where I can screen record this and share it as a GIF. It is not interactive. So I'm going to open up another Claude window and I'm going to put in basically that same prompt, but I'm going to say, blah, 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 make it incredibly interactive for the user and use colors like da 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 da. So all we changed is instead of saying, hey, make an animation where it runs on its own and you can use it as a GIF or a video file, instead we're saying, make it interactive. And you can see that already there's going to be some sort of selection that it created where it is setting that state to say, did the user select it or not? And then it's going to show some sort of animation from that. I always like looking at it when it is getting built out. I like looking at the title that it came up with, the Chief AI Officer Myth. That's nice. If I were writing a newsletter, something like that is also a very helpful thing. So even as it's writing, even if I don't end up using this, I am still parsing out things that I like. I'm always kind of cherry picking, ooh, I like this title. Actually, I'm gonna write this whole paper myself, but I like this CTA, that kind of stuff. It is allowing those selections of words that shouldn't be a tool in a toolbar. The executive success. This is fine. And then let's see, executive. Okay. I don't like this one as much as I did the first pass or as much as the Gemini pass, but this one is great. And if someone is going, you know what? I have internal champions. Awesome. So it, like in, I don't know, a minute, coded what this looked like. I love that it kind of changes this translucent thing. You can see that it even added a glow around it. It added icons to each one. I mean, that's actually really impressive. And then tracks this implementation progress, which is very easy. Skip the da-da-da. Okay, so that is a more interactive version. I could also publish this. I can make it public, obviously after editing it, because this toolbar is stupid. Publishing it, I could add that as a link with my post and say, if you want to interact with this, if you want to track your own progress, here's this asset for you. If I wanted to share instead this animation, I don't have to share a link, though I could. I would probably just share the animation itself. With this visual, it messed it up way too much, right? But I can say, you changed too much. Just use the exact previous image. All I want you to do is have the success section at the bottom. Do not change anything else. You'll see that I'm like really repeating myself a lot. And you have to do that with these systems. It's like iteration of instruction ends up improving performance. What happened to the test? So obviously I would do a longer prompt that says, maintain this. I also might download that first image, upload it in a new thread, and say, take this image and add a blah, blah, blah at the bottom. What I've learned in ChatGPT, at least, is that when you go in a single thread and you're asking for image iteration after image iteration, it just must be that like one image is holding a bunch of context length, and so it's much more likely to forget earlier images. So it ended up changing the background. Now we have that black instead of, I think it was like a dark blue, dark gray. I don't know, I'm colorblind. But it did not change this box. I think if anything, I feel like the font size got smaller. So again, you have to like keep iterating on these things. Very, very rarely am I getting something back that I'm like, oh my God, that's perfect. I cannot wait to publish that to 2 million people, right? That's so useful. I am going through multiple iterations. I might even grab this code if I go too many iterations and it kind of craps out. I might grab this code of whatever version that I liked, and you can dial back which versions. I might grab this, open up a new thread in Gemini and Claude, really doesn't matter. And then I can say, edit this code. Like the height is probably fixed set. And so I could just go in here and instead say, hey, for that like actual container, can you make the height of it, whatever, 50 pixels instead of 150? Reopen Canvas with just the post itself. I want to make audio overview. Cool. Okay, so it is now, you can see, just doing the post and not taking my post and turning it into a blog post. So in this actual post, I'm gonna now say create audio overview. All I had to do is that. I didn't have to prompt it. I didn't have to say, hey, make it between 3 voices instead of 2, make them argue instead of happy. That also means that you don't get a ton of control over it, but you gotta weigh those trade-offs. Either it's incredibly easy to create and the prompt lift is nothing, or you have a lot more control. Okay, so the audio overview is done. Let's take a listen.
Okay, let's dive right in.
Let's do.
Because
Because
today's
if you're gonna do an audio overview, I would recommend a few things, and I was hoping that it would show how weird it is, and it did. Um, Number one, it kept saying this source, this post. Give it a title. Give it a title, give it the author name, right? Like you can just add into the top here a title. And because we got it from Claude, we can do the Chief AI Officer myth. And then I can say by Allie K. Miller. I can honestly highlight any of this and do the expansion so that it has a little bit more to go off of. I can grab the original blog expansion that it gave me and use that because it has a little more meat. I can sit here and riff. I wrote all this from scratch. I can write 4 more paragraphs on the same topic. I could even, if I really wanted to, open up some sort of transcription service like Otter or Super Whisper or something. And I can dictate for 10 more minutes on this topic and this idea and this idea and this idea and this idea. And I can say, hey, here's the, original post or whatever. I guess it didn't work out. This is the original post and here is additional thoughts on it. And so that way I actually didn't have to write more formal paragraphs because I was editing it a bunch, but it's giving the audio overview of the podcast feature a lot more context to be able to pull from. I could also, if I really, really wanted to make the greatest audio overview of all time, I can run a deep research task on this. So I can say, hey, let's start a new chat. I can grab that post and I can say, run some research on how chief AI officers are, being used in the enterprise. How many are there? How many companies are using them? What companies are using them? Are they effective? Are more companies hiring them now than they did 2 years ago? How many open job postings are there for chief AI officer? Is it different by region? Whatever. I could give deep research a set of these questions specific to my post. It'll run that deep research task. Usually it takes a couple minutes. I would then attach that with this post and say, okay, now create an artifact, now create an animation, now create a website, now create an audio overview without actually having to write 4 more pages of context. So again, you should always be this context hunter. You should always be thinking about multimodal, obviously input, but definitely output, and push yourself to say, if it's something really important, if it's the biggest release, of your company this year, how can you make it more multimodal so that each medium gets more experience and so that you can reach more mediums? There's so much to go off of. I mean, if you're a book author, like make a podcast overview of your book. If you're a book author, create a quiz about your book that you can, build that out inside of Notebook LM and share that. Go on to Lovable or Bolt or Replit or any of these and ask for an interactive, archetype test. We did this for my team, but ask for an interactive archetype test that aligns to your book and then go back and forth and make sure it's in your branding. Think multimodally and always be thinking about where to pull more context. That is it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Talk to you guys soon.